Stillwater's Morning Scramble, Kyle Wray, Vice President of Oklahoma State University, and as always on a Friday, and lots to talk about. We started off in our first segment talking about really some updates on the CARES program you were talking about, and we can kind of, I guess, recap that again. If people have any questions, how do they find the answers?
Well, the best way is to call financial aid, and financial aid is prepared to take your phone calls, and so we sent out application through an email, so students got an email that said if you've been affected, here's the app that you need to send in. But you do need to have filled out a FAFSA in order to receive some of that CARES Act money. So if you have any questions about that, certainly call financial aid, or you could send them an email as well.
Yeah. Was the response everything you thought it would be last week when you kind of...
we had a lot of students respond. I don't think it's over.
Yeah.
For a couple of reasons. One is not every student is going to answer their email within 12 hours
Right.
of sending out the email. So there's that. The second issue is that much like when we've looked at the curve, and it's been interesting to see how the doctors or the scientists are trying to show us graphically what's been happening, and you see those lines that curve, and so you begin to understand the flattening the curve phrase. But you always see that the deaths lag behind, because, just to be blunt about it, once people go into the hospital and they have those issues relative to COVID-19, it takes some time for what's going to happen.
Right.
The same thing can be said for the economic impact. There's going to be some lag. There are going to be some businesses that haven't laid off people yet that will.
Sure.
And we know that not all of this money can be disseminated at the beginning. We're going to have to ration those CARES Act dollars, because we're going to see some additional effects over the coming months.
And this will also affect universities. It affects every industry. I'm seeing people in the Oklahoma City and Tulsa markets in our business that are being furloughed.
Sure.
People with the Oklahoman. I mean, Barry Trammell has been furloughed partially, but Barry's kind of a legend in this state, in his industry, and there's hard times there. And
Sure.
so I think from what I read in his article, and I know Barry, you know Barry,
Yep.
He's basically laid off 1 week a month. And he's not allowed to ride, or he's told don't do this or whatever, and you don't get paid during that time anyway.
Right.
And so this is going to continue. We're going to see the after effect at universities too, right?
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you when you don't know, you said earlier, when you don't know what the future is, when you don't even know what normal is, it makes it hard to plan. In this past week, there has been an article that came out in the Chronicle of Higher Education, and later on, and so I'm going to read from this article here in just a minute so that I don't misquote anything.
Sure.
But at the end of the article, they reached out to the media relations, public relations. They're going to quote the presidents here. And they reached out to the media relations, public relations people at the end and did not get a response back. But what was said was that any plans that they're talking about now aren't finalized and can't be until later on in the summer. But the first institution that sort of threw out there what they were going to do was California State University at Fullerton. Pamela Oliver, the provost, said that they plan to start the fall semester online, and should governmental and health authorities allow, gradually move back to on-campus operations. That is her feeling for what will happen at Cal State Fullerton in the fall. And that makes a lot of people groan, including me. I mean, because what we really need, as you said as we went to the break, we need students to be back face-to-face, et cetera.
The one thing when you say just when you said Cal, you didn't say Cal Fullerton, with the statements that have come out from the governor of California talking about we may not have concerts and sporting events here until 2021. I wondered if that was kind of a follow-up to the fact that they are planning on being down for the long haul in a state of 40 million people.
Yeah, and again, the caveat at the end of the article says that both leaders recognized that what they say today may change in a week, could change in a month, but California has taken that really hard line stance. I was surprised to hear exactly what you said, that the governor said nothing, no big groups until 21, and that makes, I saw the commissioner of the NFL ask that question about what about the teams in California, and he said, hey, we're going to have to cross that bridge when we get to it, but that's not today. He was asked that question in preparation for the NFL draft. The second institution represented here, it says on Tuesday, Mitchell E. Daniels, president of Purdue University, one of the top-ranked land-grant institutions in the country, said that his university intended to bring students back to campus in August. He wrote in an email that Purdue was determined, these are his quotes, not to surrender helplessly to the difficulties of the virus. Then he added this, shutting down campus, he wrote, has come at extraordinary cost, as much human as economic, and at some point, clearly before next fall, those will begin to vastly outweigh the benefits of its continuance. And I appreciate the way he worded that. And he probably just described every college and university in the country.
Let me ask you this, and we're just, obviously, we don't know any facts yet, and we don't know where we're going to be at that time. Student housing, those issues, will they be addressed to fewer people in a suite, stuff like that?
Absolutely. I talked to Doug Hellenbeck, the Vice President for Student Affairs, yesterday at 1:30, and they are discussing those kinds of things, right? In terms of, again, what I've said over the last 6 weeks, the number one goal for Oklahoma State University is the safety of its faculty, staff, and students. And so the OSU family, keeping them safe is the number one goal. And we're putting plans in place to make sure that when students do come back, we're providing them the safest environment possible. I know Chris Barlow and others in the health area have been for weeks, because I know we talked about it a week or two prior to spring break about what would happen if we had an outbreak here, whether that's one student, 10 students, what abilities do we have to quarantine, what happens if it occurs in a dorm, and you've got people that have obviously been exposed, et cetera. And so that we've been talking about that for weeks, and the people that are experts in those fields have a plan.
You know, we mentioned it's so quiet around here, but there's still so much going on. I saw a story this morning about air conditioning ventilation. Mm-hmm. Okay, what does that cause? And this was from a restaurant. So those are things that I imagine they're discussing there about whether it's quarantining or whatever. What about the ventilation and the air, and how many people can we have in here, and classroom size, where they have lecture halls. Mm-hmm. All those things have to be discussed ahead of time, because sort of what people have been talking about, you got to have a plan, because eventually we are going back.
Yeah, no doubt. And not that I want to be a constant 24-hour commercial for Stillwater and Oklahoma State University, but I will say I think the latest numbers I saw said in Payne County there were 33 cases maybe, and 0 deaths. We're fortunate that we are in a real college town that is low in population. I've told people I've been to New York City probably 50, 60 times total. It's impossible to social distance in New York City. Just can't happen.
Yeah.
I mean, there are 17 million people there, and let's say half of them stayed in. Well, when the other half go out to get groceries, it is shoulder to shoulder. And so we're very fortunate to be in a place, and the numbers that we have are demonstrating why that is.
When you see the pictures of New York, though, and you're right, there are people out, and there's probably hundreds of thousands out.
Yeah.
But it looks almost like a ghost town compared to what we
mm-hmm.
see.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're used to seeing Times Square,
right?
And you see the Flatiron Building, and you see all that stuff, and you go, that just doesn't look right. Because people go there actually for the crowds. Because it's so different from, that's why it's a tourist mecca, is because you get a taste of that, and then you enjoy that, and you can't wait to get back home.
Yeah, well, that's right. What you said that made me think of that was the ventilation system, where you have so many people living and breathing, the same air, and are in the same space. If you've ever been in New York City, around Times Square, anywhere in Manhattan, at 10 o'clock in the morning, and you walk out of a building onto the sidewalk, it's like a fish going into the stream with a whole bunch of other fish. You just jump in, and the crowd just sort of takes you in one direction or another, and that has not helped.
Right. And, I know there's social distancing on the subways and the buses and everything, but and I actually enjoy the big difference in lifestyle for 3 days or whatever.
Yeah, me too.
Because navigating around the subway and stuff, but and I don't know if the New Yorkers do this, but when I get on in New York, Washington, or Boston, or wherever you're on the subway, my right hand is on my wallet. Is yours? Because a lot of times you're usually standing, or I'm standing, because women and seniors get the seats, or they should. So you're holding on to something, holding on to a strap. You're vulnerable there. I'm usually guarding my wallet, and I've never had a pickpocket incident or anything like that. But there's still that, because you're rubbing up against these people. You just are.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
you're right.
different world. So you don't do that, huh?
Well, I'm weird because I put my wallet in my front pocket.
You got yours in your front pocket.
So it's right there where I can see it and feel it.
So you got to have a groper instead of a pickpocket.
That's right. That's right. I'm twice as vulnerable.
You got a different crime going on there.
Yeah.
Hey, we haven't talked sports at all. Last night was the NFL draft.
Right.
Completely different. I'm sure mothers of players all over the college landscape were cleaning up their house all week long, probably, because they all had cameras in their house.
Right.
Totally different. But from what I saw, I thought they all did it really well. Because they had the cameras there. You got to peek into the window of their lives a little bit and see their family and little brothers and sisters and stuff.
Right.
That was, considering where we are, I thought they did the best job they could.
Yeah. Well, I talked to my friend from New York this morning, and she has a son who expects to go today. Her first son played football at Duke. He was an offensive lineman, and he's a long snapper, actually, center, and for special teams, and he plays for the New York Jets. His name is Thomas Hennessy, and he's been in the NFL. I think this is coming up on his third or fourth year. Her youngest son, though, played center at Temple.
Wow.
And Matt Hennessy is his name, and he expects to go today.
Is he a long snapper?
No, he is a center. He is a true center.
Okay.
So he's an offensive lineman, interior offensive lineman. And sometimes, they take centers and move them out to guard. And sometimes if they don't have a center, they'll take a guard and teach him how to snap the ball. But he is a true center.
You got to be smart.
You do have to be smart. You're talking about
Yeah.
Pass coverage or blocking schemes and those kind of things, and calling out what fronts that they're giving you and any stunts that you might see and those kinds of things. But Matt is looking for. There are 4 teams basically looking at him: the Panthers, the Giants, the Broncos, and the Chicago Bears.
Okay.
And so he's kind of looking to go today to one of those 4 teams.
I'll remember the name because I can think of the town, Hennessy.
Yeah.
You use a code. A long smacker, going back to your travels on the subway again. Long snapper, if they get their name on network TV, and if Robert Allen is out there listening, he can relate to this with Zach, who was a great long snapper here, did a great job. But you don't want anybody to know who you are, because the only way they mention your name is if something went wrong.
Right.
That's just the way it works.
Yep.
Because nobody goes, oh, another good snap. You don't say that. It's just almost not fair. But we'll watch for that tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but it was kind of an interesting. And the first night is the major night, obviously, all the biggest names. But it was interesting getting a sneak peek into their lives a little bit. So you do what you have to. So.
Yeah, that's right.
And they needed something live to show, an event, and so I'm sure that they were grateful for that. So, did you watch the Michael Jordan thing?
I sure did. Both episodes.
Really good, wasn't it?
It was excellent. Can't wait for it to come back.
Yeah, I'm
Sunday
the same
night.
way.
Yeah.
I didn't watch it until Monday. I thought I see what people were raving about for one, and when it aired live, a lot of people were posting. I could watch all of them tonight. I think because it was just really good.
Yeah.
So and also some good lessons in there. You don't get this stuff by accident.
No, that's right. And you saw Michael's greatness, but the inside view, the look that they give you behind the curtain, so to speak,
Yeah.
and it's well done. It's
Oh yeah.
The film and the way they've edited it is very well done.
And you realize it's a reminder. It is a business because, I mean, here they are. They win. They're getting older, except Jordan. He's still young. And it's like, okay, do we just get rid of everybody? One day they're hugging them, and other they're giving them their walking papers.
Yeah.
Or we're thinking about
Right.
it. And so you realize it's cut and dried. They get big bucks for a reason, and it's like, we don't think you're worth much anymore. See ya.
Yeah.
So it's like trading in a new car, right?
That's right.
You got 100,000 miles on you, dude.
Yeah. See ya.
That's exactly right. But they'll be on Sunday night.
Yeah.
No.
Very good show.
Yeah. 2 hours that I think people can get away from what's going on in the real world right now. So
Yeah.
So anything we missed?
No, but what you said reminded me of a quick story that I'll tell.
Sure.
I think it was in World War II. On a train, there was a woman. She was a grandmother, and her 20-year-old granddaughter sitting in this train car, and on comes a private in the Army and his superior officer, and they sit right across from the grandmother and the daughter. And as they're going down the track, they go into a tunnel. Everything goes dark. And when everything goes dark, you heard two sounds: a kiss and a slap. And so when they came out of the dark, everybody was thinking something. The grandmother was thinking, "Wow, that was bold for that young private to kiss my granddaughter in the dark." And but I wonder why she slapped him. And the granddaughter was thinking, it was very nice that he kissed me in the dark. And the general was thinking to himself, I appreciate, or the superior officer said, "I really appreciate the fact that he was bold enough to do that." And the private was thinking it was his finest hour, because in the dark he got to kiss the girl and hit his superior officer so that no one would find out.
Those chances don't come around very often.
He took advantage.
There was some of that wannabe stuff in the documentary with Jordan.
Yes.
When you see the bosses.
Oh, that's right.
It's a business.
It is, and it was cutthroat. It was all about money in the future, right?
There you go.
Yeah.
So be careful in a tunnel, and I'll see you next week, right?
I'll be there.
There you go. Kyle Wray, Vice President at Oklahoma State University.